Welcome back. So before the break, I told you about a man who was arrested in the UAE. He was the former municipal manager of a municipality in the Free State. He was arrested there about 9 years ago for allegedly being unable to pay a businessman there about 2 million rand worth of debt or so. And he's been spending 9 years there. He was released, first of all, after about 3 years of imprisonment. And he's been trying to come back home to South Africa, but he's been unable to. And articles around him say that he's left his daughter at 9 years old, and now she is 18, and he still hasn't seen her. So we're going to be speaking to him himself. His name is Mr. Sello Tsolo, and we'll be speaking to Change.org's Mr. Mbuthuma Maduna, just to speak to us about how you're assisting Mr. Tsolo come back home. But let me start with you, Mr. Tsolo, who joins us now virtually from the UAE, particularly in Dubai. Just tell me very quickly, just to bring the viewers up to speed who might have missed the stories around you. When you went to Dubai in the first place, what did you think you were going there for? And this document that you signed that has gotten you into such trouble, what did you not understand about it?
Thank you for the opportunity, Masego. I went to the UAE specifically on the invitation of Amit Lamba, who was at the time in South Africa as an investor. So we have signed at that time a memorandum of understanding with him that he will invest about 675 million in our project. So he also promised to, when things are ready, to organize a flight ticket for me and also book a hotel for free, since we are going now to enter into this venture. So that is actually the background or the reason why I went to the UAE. The signing of documents which were essentially in Arabic is a process of manipulation that Amit Lamba has concocted together with his lawyers, which ended up seeing me having a debt of over 2 million, which I must state categorically now that I never took anything from him. I don't owe him anything. But because of the lawyers that were representing him, who are probably some of them residents in the UAE who have been there for quite some time, they have managed to master the deception as well as the manipulation of the system. Because I'm not the only one who got trapped in the UAE. There are many people who got trapped as a result of his manipulative or his fraudulent activities.
And Mr. Tsolo, you know, I mean, for the fact that you were arrested, for instance, I understand, with Choko Kambule as well as Yanni van der Walt, you were arrested for about 3 years, released from prison, and now it's been 6 years that you've been trying to come back home. I understand that the UAE still expects you to pay back this loan, even though they won't allow you to work in that particular country?
Yes, let me just correct it. It's not alone the money, the debt. Yeah, that's essentially how the system works. Because, as I've said, that Amit and his lawyers, I would specifically state it that way, that he's working with the lawyers. Both of them are running what one can call a syndicate of defrauding people. They would invite people here because they have mastered the system. They would promise you one thing, and when you go and sign, what would be maybe something like a friendly arrangement with them, only to find that what you are signing for is not what you have agreed on with them. It is an acknowledgement of debt. So that as it may, it is what under the bridge because it has happened. But now the issue is because they would manipulate the system to ensure that even if the courts would call you to come and whether acknowledge whether you owe those people or not, they would hide information from you. Remember, I didn't know anybody in the UAE when I went there. So all the information that would be going to his lawyers, and I wouldn't know that I'm expected to go in court to confirm whether I owe them or not. So court processes will go without my presence. So therefore, the court would conclude that I'm accepting that I'm owing them. So it is a well-orchestrated and planned system that Amit and his lawyers have been executing. All his income is based on the fraudulent activities where people would be threatened with imprisonment. If they don't pay, then they are being sent to jail. So a lot of people have paid, but it is only us who refused to pay, and then we ended up being in prison. Just to give you a quick indication that whilst in prison in Ajman in 2014, we were joined by 2 other Indians who were defrauded by the same Amit. But because they were afraid, they had to pay the money. They told us that, hey, we will have to pay the money. That is one guy. Then the other guy then had to organize the lawyers who were local lawyers who will be able to negotiate his release. But it came at a hefty price, about 90,000 dirhams that they have to pay for those local lawyers, which is almost...
I'm definitely going to come back to you with more questions just very quickly because I'm running out of time. I have to bring in Change.org into this conversation. And I understand that this particular businessman was Amit Lamba, and at some point he himself was actually arrested for this particular syndicate. So it doesn't make sense why then, after his arrest, that they wouldn't let, for instance, Mr. Tsolo and the likes of him return to their home countries, right? So what is it that Change.org thinks is going on here? Because and also, is the South African government unwilling to assist in this particular case?
Okay, no. My name is Mbuthuma Maduna.
Yes.
Change.org is the platform that I used to posit the petition.
Yeah.
So I'm not representing Change.org.
Okay, but you're representing Mr. Tsolo.
I used Change.org to posit the petition.
Yeah, to assist him to come back home. All right,
So I'm duly delegated by the family of Tsolo to represent them on this matter. To petition the UAE to let Ndade Tsolo to get back home. Shall I take this opportunity
to
friendly advise South African government that Nelson Mandela said, never and never again shall it be that in this beautiful land one should experience oppression of one by another. And in this case, Ndade Tsolo is faced with a situation of being oppressed by one.
Which is the South African government. Which is
Amit Lamba, who was brought in this country as an investor by the DTI, as an investor, and they brought him here saying he was an investor. Now, all what he does, he's defrauding South Africans, and government is silent about that. It's about time that our government wakes up and not take, an inferiority complex in the community of nations.
And have you been in contact at all with, for instance, the International Relations Department in our country to see if they've gotten any petitions themselves?
On the 21st of June, we were invited. I must put it, I was invited. To DERCO.
Okay.
After I had asked for an appointment with the minister, and I was advised that the only way to meet the minister should be either by making an email or a WhatsApp, which I did. And then I got an opportunity to know about Change.org, and I posited the petition. So the petition was gaining momentum at the time. I then got invited to meet the officials
And
who would brief then the minister, who would know what to do.
So far no response from the minister since he was briefed?
There's not been any.
All right, we'll definitely try and get the International Relations Department to speak to us here on eNCA, and hopefully anyone who works for them must understand we have to invite them to the show for them to tell us what they know about the Sello Tsolo case and what they're going to do to try and help him come back. Mr. Tsolo, I'm going to come back to you there in Dubai just very quickly. Reading the articles, this happened, of course, 9 years ago, and it was at the height of South Africa's battle with corruption when it came to the Gupta family, etc. Mr. Mabunda is, talking about, for instance, that this man was brought here as an investor by the DTI, which is a government organization or a government entity. So can you just help us understand, did this have any links to the Gupta family and them setting their footprints into this country?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure whether to say it had a direct link with it, because I cannot necessarily prove it. But what I can indicate as circumstantial evidence or information, because this Amit Lamba happened to have connections with officials in government. Because, for instance, I was informed by someone from the Department of Agriculture in the Free State when I got a call that there is an investor who is willing to invest millions in South Africa. So at that time, I was made to believe that this is a person who has got connections with some politicians. Yeah. And as a result, when you look back at the project that I was running, which was the sort of integrated dairy, in the financial year of 2011-2012, the Department of Agriculture had promised to invest about 6 million for the 2011-2012 financial year, because our project was approved and supported by the department at the time. And at that point, we had already received over 2.5 million from the Department of Agriculture. We were ready to start the implementation process. Now, we were happy when we promised this 6 million. But when the new Minister MEC of Agriculture was brought in, which is some 71, we were hoping, because I briefed him as soon as he took over as the minister. We had countless meetings with him. We brought him up to speed. We gave him our business plan. We gave him all the projections and the financials that we had about the project, including the partnership arrangements that we had with the German companies. So he was quite happy about it. But I could see something was not right, because eventually when we were supposed to get the money, we were told that there is a project management company that was now managing the distribution of the funds to all the projects in the Free State. And I continued to pursue them, telling them that we as a sort of integrated, we are ready and we have all the capacity to can implement. They should give us some money. We'll just account for every cent that they have given us. Then that money would come. So we had an option now of trying to raise money through other means. That is when now this investor from UAE was introduced. Yeah, and by the way, during that financial year, all the money that was allocated to for all the projects in the Free State were never issued to any of those projects. In other words, the entire budget that was meant for the projects in the Free State was then diverted to Free the Dairy project.
Yeah,
then you can make up your...
That's exactly, yeah. We'll let the viewers decide, right, Mr. Tsolo? Because if you're saying that it was then redirected to the Freda Dairy Farm, which we know is one of the biggest scandal when it comes to corruption and with regards to the Gupta family here in South Africa, I think let's let the viewer decide on whether or not this particular case has to do anything with you and why you have not been able to be assisted to come back home, leaving his daughter at the age of 9, and now she's 18 years old and doesn't even know who her father really is. A lot of people people in 9 years pass away, right? A lot of things happen in 9 years. Children are born, people pass away, and this man is still stuck in the UAE. We'll try and get a hold of DIRCO to find out from them exactly what they know about this story. That was Sello Tsolo. He's the former project manager for the Setsoto Local Municipality in the Free State, as well as Mbuthuma Maduna. He is the petition organizer to try and get Mr. Tsolo back in South Africa. All right, when we return, we've got some business news for you with Devin Murugan.